It's him. Hey, who's missing? Hey. Oh, that's just where it loops around. I'm like, they deleted one of my people.
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Drebber? The previous witness?
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tuspel's Museum of Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. She apparently freaking dipped his head in wax too. Sure, why not? The condemned criminal... Wait, is it going to be that this camera has blood on it? Because she's like, yes, the original camera that he had around his neck also had blood on it, so I even reconstructed that detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man was Albert Einstein. Is 10 years younger Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Order! Order! Surely not, Counsel. Drebber was there, in Lowgate Cemetery.
What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course. Madame Tuspels doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam, as you are to your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No! But that would mean...
Madame, two spells. It would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber.
Oui, yes, I know it. But from long ago, in the past. What? How could you know someone in the past? Do you have a time machine? Oh my.
Good gracious. Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know.
Yes, of course. It's not a very not a very accurate question for a lawyer to ask. So, tell us everything you know. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article?
Goodness me, yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London, and a resident of its student dorms.
Unbelievable. Oh yeah, it does say that. When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal... Oh wait, why is there a signature here? Hold on. How is Asmund... Did he... Is he the illustrator for the newspaper? What's going on? That is his signature. We know because we saw it on his business card or something. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery at the dead of night would make a perfect exhibition for my House of Horrors, whether it was the truth or not.
I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt a waxwork of the man, did you?
On the contract, yes. Right. We did have a business card, but it wasn't Asmund's. It was the other guy's. Exactement. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him 500 pence. No, more than that. This was before the decimal day. To model for the waxwork. And since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery. And then the sun exploded. So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in a case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asmund, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Sith, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Sith put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal who's I don't know that we've ever gone this far into, total conjecture without the prosecutor being like, you're extremely wrong. I mean, Van Zieks has said that, but he hasn't said it enough. I would be saying it more. What we just said is absolutely not proven. Not yet. Hold on. All of the 10 years later, this is what happened. It's we have no proof of this. We've said that it is possible. Hey, Serp. We've said that it's possible, and then we've also said it's possible that the waxwork was in the what do you call it? Was in the birdcage. This is the only thing that we've put so far. And even, no. Even this, we're she put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive, according to the Daily Circus. According to a newspaper report. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. We do know he did steal it, yes. But we don't know that it was in the cage. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. Arg! So he's saying, when she showed up, she'd be like, it's a dummy, but it's a dummy of the guy that I deliberately falsely autopsied 10 years ago. So, whoever did this knows my secret, so I'm going to cover up the fact that this is a wax. Alright. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Sith to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected. And he's going to be like, no. But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Sith is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case? She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case, but please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
But Lord Van Zieks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes! Captain Falcon is back on the case. Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Sith both take the stand together. I mean, I get that's... I guess I don't know hierarchically what Lord Strongheart has the ability to do, but I guess, I mean, he could tell prosecutors not to call her to the stand. I suppose.
Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Sith of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders.
All right, then. Enoch Drebber and Dr. Sith. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away. Just a swing of a dead cat. And then we'll have to find the murderer of the cat as well. And I will have to defend them. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Sith. Oh, sir, so have you looked over the patch notes? I don't know how into PvP you are, but since I've been doing so much Frontlines recently, and I'm obviously going to dive into Crystal Conflict and get all the stuff there, some very interesting adjustments that they've made to PvP. Oh, the cat wasn't murdered. It ran into a wall that wasn't a cat door yet. Oh, man. Is that a puzzle? I do have a time machine. I have a time machine and a thing that I can use on a wall to turn it into a wall that has a cat door. But I'm not really... It seems like the puzzle must be bugged. I don't really see a way to get the cat to live. Doesn't seem very thought through. The site is down. The Square Enix site? Or you were looking somewhere else? I don't know. So, the Samurai limit break, every class gets their own limit break now. Samurai gets an ability that for, a couple seconds they have a buff that if anybody attacks them, then they take damage and get a debuff. And their limit break is Zantetsuken. They charge forward and hit everyone on the way for a lot of damage. And anybody who had that buff, or that debuff on, is hit for 100% of their max health and just dies. Oh, what was the... Red Mage seems so weird. Like, things that I wasn't planning to play, I just sort of skimmed. But Red Mage, like, you actually switch between white and black, and, like, you do two different things depending on whether you're in white magic or black magic. It was very cool. Oh, their limit break is, like, they put a cross on the ground, and it's just, like, enemies inside it are damaged and allies are healed, but then... special things happen whether you were in white magic stance or black magic stance at the time. The samurai thing, though, kills me. And then ninjas are just Darius now from League of Legends. Where if they limit break someone and kill them, then they can... If someone's below half health, then the limit break is an execute, and it allows them to do it again on a second person. And it'll also be an instant kill if that person's at half health. I'm sure it's probably not Darius's animation, but it is Darius's ultimate. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zeeks. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Betrayal is not in my nature.
I know the line, of course. I have it memorized. Don't look at me. Don't look at me and don't type anything. What's the line? Oriange's line.
He who holdeth fast, he who holdeth fast to his convictions may never count betrayal among his crimes, though all the world may call him villain.
There we go. I did it. I said it.
If there is even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt.
Why is the salt bitter? First it was bitter ends of bones that we're throwing to the dogs, and now even the salt is bitter. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop, allegedly. And Dr. Sith, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime, though I have no evidence other than just saying it out loud right now. And where is your evidence? At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer, known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and I officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to the Daily Circus, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. How is it that Ryusuke Naruhodo is so much more confident when bullshitting than Phoenix Wright? How did his ancestor not inherit these gigantic balls? To say, like, according to a newspaper that I just found out existed 2 minutes ago, that's literally named the Daily Circus, this guy came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality... Touché. Touché, Faded. Not how court works. If I accuse you and I don't have to prove your guilt, you have to prove that someone else is guilty. It would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Sith's. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery.
So he was the student who saw it. You can see the resemblance, actually, can't you? With the man in Madame Tussauds, maybe.
Surely he's not going to claim that's really what he saw, especially not after all these years. He was a research student at something, and a bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me.
What an interesting twist.
Bah?
and at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now, here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters. And in a court of law, too. Very well, then. If everyone so wishes, let us be frank.
Is that a machinery pun? Is frank a British term for a gear or a cog? Or was he just saying frank? He said it in orange, so I thought he was punning.
Let's be frank. I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth. So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery. Yes, of course, as you wish. The reason I...
Uh-oh. Frames! It's okay now, right? I don't know what could have happened, but it seems okay now.
The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then, I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist. It was all because of that newspaper article.
Wait a minute. You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now?
Of course, you'd have to have a screw loose if you believed a corpse could come back from the dead.
But... So you're saying that this article in the Daily Circus is...
Not worth the paper it's printed on. I think that would describe it perfectly, yes.
Ag! But I was counting on newspapers to always tell me the truth. What do I do now? If the details in the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Sith would have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument?
Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate? That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So, among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. Grave robbing, you say? Yes. Exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. I'm pretty sure it's all legal as well. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead. So, you are one of the so-called resurrectionists, a particularly unpleasant scourge on society. Actually, my fellows and I went by another name. The Repurposers.
What?
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see. So all of the other newspapers knew his name, but were nice enough to not print it? That doesn't make sense either.
Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article? Ah, yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done, claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish. Very foolish. Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now.
At once, my lord. This article, you mean, published in the Daily Circus on the following date, which I shall now compare to your trophy? Doesn't have a date on it, does it?
No. No, it does not. Yes. Somebody informed the dean that it was my name that appeared in the article, and carelessly let slip that night after night. Oh, and carelessly let slip that night after night I was digging up graves. Hardly a model student, one might say. The university's reputation was execrably defiled, and I was expelled as a result.
Mon Dieu! I had no idea.
And having been run out of university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade.
You combined your knowledge of science with knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology, and you used those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investigators into giving you money, and you admit to this now. Even though you don't have to. No takebacks. No takebacks, though. Please say it, but no takebacks. Professor Albert Harebrain was just your latest victim, wasn't he?
Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort.
What's Drebber up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim? I wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now. What circumstances? Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging alive from his grave 10 years ago, it will expose a secret in Dr. Sith's past that she would desperately want to hide. Yes, of course. If Drebber and Dr. Sith are working together now, then if Drebber were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. All right, have a good lurk. I will be streaming again once the servers come up, which is For anyone else who wants Morky 10 today/tomorrow, 10 hours and change from now. So that's either half 10 or half. No, wait. You don't do the half when you're talking about hours. Only when you're talking about the actual time. In that case, there's only one way around it. I'll have to prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead, as he originally claimed. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly. So, it's so weird that I have the trophy. I feel like maybe they want me to present it here? To be like, you couldn't have given up on your dream of becoming a scientist because you later got this trophy? We don't know when he got it, though. Let's press on this and see if he elaborates. What are you talking about?
I think I explained already, didn't I? Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison, so it was renowned among students at the university for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night, and as a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life.
But you said you actually saw it.
I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night.
I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor? If we have anything at all, Mr. Naruhodo, I know. I need to present it against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his.
The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life.
Kalohonka overslept and forgot to farm the tombstones. Oh no. Well, it's not the end of the world. If none of the stuff you were going for was like exclusive to the event, then it will be back in a later MOG event. Or I guess you could also farm it normally. Either way. Alright. Present. Trophy.
Objection.
Completely silly. I look like a goofball now. Why would they even have him say it?
Hold it.
The strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny.
Not entirely. Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police at the time, you know. I was shaking like a leaf. But they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself.
So you went to the papers instead?
I started big with the London News, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was reporters from the gossip rags, the gutter press, that came to get my story. And it spread like the plague through the capital as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale. The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets. And yet only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories.
What about the article in the Daily Circus?
That particular journalist found me at my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name, so I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night.
And from your description, he drew this illustration?
Precisely. That is how I learned that the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see. Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate then? Well...
Hold it!
That young woman being Madame Two Spells, of course.
Precisely. I must say, I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later.
As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article, and I found the man. Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said.
I was a poor student with barely a pence.
He didn't even have a 1 pence to his name? Gosh.
At the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me. So you readily consented to having a waxwork made of yourself made, and gave permission for it to be put on display. I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded.
Ah, oui, I remember now. I purchased something else from you that day, n'est-ce pas?
Did you? I can't say I remember.
What was it, madam? His camera. Ah, okay, so it was the actual camera, not her recreating it. But she did actually buy the camera so she could put it in the exhibit. And there was blood on it. Does she still have the picture? Or did he take the picture out before giving it to her?
Oh yes, I made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion into any cemetery. You took a camera with you, sir? To what end? Don't you know that cameras in current year take 10 minutes to take a picture, and also they don't work at night in the dark? To record the details of the bodies I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it. I see.
But I still have it, monsieur. It is part of the special exhibit in my House of Horrors. I'm very meticulous about such details. It is the Two Spells way. It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to Lowgate Cemetery on the night in question.
Yes.
Interesting. The details of the camera have been updated. So... Does it say that it was used to take a picture? Do we have evidence of that? No.
Hold it!
Press on this just in case it's press on everything. By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you?
Surely, you only need to look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge the answer to that. The lantern and spade.
It's a scope, trowel. But who on earth would want to buy a dead body? Any major hospital. A hospital? In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means.
As aspiring scientists, we young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine, so we made surreptitious arrangements with the hospital via some of our medical student acquaintances. We would never take anything of value from the graves. This was all for the furtherance of science, you see.
This is the second or third time that he's mentioned that. Oh, we didn't take anything of value from the graves. I wonder if we're going to disprove that at some point.
That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at night, spade in hand. You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, or if you admitted to it under oath in a courtroom, you could expect the gravest of consequences. We students were caught between the hammer and the anvil. We needed funds for research.
Professor Hairbrain said exactly the same.
I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you've revealed this abhorrent behavior. Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected it to end the way it did. That I regret to this day.
Alright, so... I already pressed on this, but we just zip through to see if something has changed. Because I don't really see anything to do here. Unless I'm going to make the gigantic leap of presenting the camera here and saying, of course you saw the professor. Why else would there be blood on the inside of your, there's blood on your camera and you can only... It would only be there if it was extended, so... No, that's not it.
Hold it!
Although she did just say something, right? Material evidence that could show he really did see the professor. It seems like that, if anything, that's what they want. They want me to present the camera there and to say the fact that there's blood on the portion of this camera that you can only see while it's open means that on that night you must have gotten blood on it because you had it open and were taking a picture when you were attacked by someone who was bleeding. Oh, whoops. Just to be thorough.
Hold it!
I'm prepared to be disappointed when I present this here and it's not right. Because I do not know what I don't know what my next guess is after this. Oh, go back. Is there a different statement that... Hold on. how could the illustration be what based on what he... The camera is open here. Is his monocle on the wrong eye? No, it's the right. That's the correct eye. This isn't gonna work.
Objection!
Didn't work. The illustration in the newspaper article. I'm just gonna present this here.
Objection!
It wasn't that. So what do we actually think happened that night? Do we think that I guess I kind of think that Odie Asman is or was the professor. If Dr. Sith arranged for him, like, said, oh, I'll just have them pretend to execute you, and then we'll switch out the bodies so that when she... No, because they didn't know that she was going to sneak in and fricking... They didn't know that she was going to sneak in and take a wax impression, so there would be no... Well, they would still want to switch people anyway. No, I have no way of knowing, like, what actually happened. Without just guessing, without just making a crazy guess. I suppose... No, let's say he really... That most of his story is true. That he went there not being involved. And... What? saw... No, we're still way far away from the truth on this, and I don't have any idea. Let me try sci-fi. Save here. I want to see when I game over. If I say restart me from the last place I saved, does it still give me full health or no? Probably doesn't, but that's okay. Is it that the article doesn't say anything about him grave robbing?
Objection.
Nope, that wasn't it. But my lord, wait.
Guilty.
The hell?
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty.
Guilty!
Kill me.
Do. Rip. Oh no, there's a murderer coming out of that gravestone. I'll take a picture of him. And then 10 years later, Oh, I guess there's a difference between alright, so if I say... Yeah, I'm still gonna be on 1 life, so that was kind of pointless. Alright. So there's also the hair thing, right? Well, his hair is already white there. But didn't they say, like, oh, he was so scared that all his hair turned white? See, he had... I already tried presenting the newspaper on this one.
Objection.
Is that it? Is are we proving he did see him on that night? Because as you can see, you have black hair in this sketch, and because your hair is now white, it means you definitely saw a guy come out of a grave. Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that.
Don't believe what?
Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago.
Oh dear. We seem to be at odds, but I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see.
The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb wearing an iron You know, there was a point where I was like, what the hell is the face supposed to be? I had assumed that she put the mask on her wax doll because she wasn't supposed to reveal the face. But did the original guy also have a mask on him? Because here it was hard to tell what the hell that's supposed to be. Because, I mean, you can see his teeth. Weird. Okay. So I guess they're gonna... Okay. Well, I'll let him talk. A figure emerging from a tomb wearing an iron mask.
Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago, it was decided in the closed court's ruling that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity.
Which, we didn't know that, right? How are we supposed to get this right?
It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial. Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. But obviously the provision of this mask was not public knowledge.
So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard,
Ugh.
a lowly student of the University of the lowly University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. So unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration.
Arg. Order. Well, Mr. Drebber? It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards, I came to my senses and I realized that I'd been mistaken.
You're still saying you didn't see it?
If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you. Of course. Only too happy to oblige.
I can't believe he's still not going to concede the point. It's only a murder charge. It's only several murder charges, and actually all crimes. If he admits to this, then he admits to all crimes.